facilities, library, a community center, open space improvements, and some other facilities and improvements. A relatively small portion of this revenue, about 10%, is also authorized to be spent on general promotional expenses for the city. So a lot of our costs here are basically the same as in the previous year. In terms of personnel, we are not increasing our full-time equivalents here. We found a total of 9.5 full-time equivalents out of here. This includes 13 part-time and 1 full-time position for the library. One full-time.
This is 2022, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, 2022. I think I have the headings correct on all the other ones, but that I apologize.
No, there's some more, but anyway.
I think I caught those, but alright, let's see. 1 full-time position for our senior center and a portion of 2 full-time positions for the Colleyville Center. We do have operational expenses related to technology for the library, the senior center, and the Colleyville Center as well, as furniture replacement for the Colleyville Center and some other miscellaneous overhead items. In trying to balance our eligible costs here with the general fund, as I mentioned, we did move 1 major beautification cost. That's our parks mowing contract, about $260,000 to mow the city parks into this fund for next year. We do continue to focus on special events and public communication funding here as much as we can as well. And some of the capital expenses we have planned here for the next several years include renovating our parks restrooms, as efforts here have been well received. We also plan on some landscaping and renovations to our senior center, as well as our sidewalks and trails. We do budget for a grant match for our sidewalks and trails capital items, as we do aggressively pursue those dollars each year as well. Here's some other projects here that we have not done in the past that I want to touch on for a second. The first involves an interaction with our tax increment financing district. For anyone unfamiliar with that, the TIF district, as we call it, is a legal entity set up to benefit a specific commercial corridor of the city using that corridor's property tax dollars. The TIF comes into play here because the CEDC previously issued some bonds to pay for projects that would have otherwise been eligible to be paid for out of the TIF district. Now, as of fiscal year 2021, the CEDC had owed $4.775 million in principal and $645,000 in interest on these bonds, and they were slated to extend through 2029. Now, the total costs, the total TIF eligible project cost that the TIF incurred was $5.519 million. So that's the amount the TIF reimbursed into the CEDC in the fall of 2020. The CEDC then took that reimbursement and paid off all $4.775 million in principal, and then saved that $645,000 in interest through 2029. So the CEDC is now debt-free. Now the TIF is a large part of our city's cash-funded capital projects plan, and the cash flow for this plan is projected to be relatively tight. So we're budgeting for the CEDC to loan the TIF back up to $5 million, likely through 2022, to temporarily assist with that cash-funded cash flow, the CIP cash flow, excuse me. Currently, the plan is for the TIF to repay by 2026 at the latest is our current projections. So this interaction saved the TIF $645,000 in interest, made the CEDC debt-free, and freed up $600,000 annually. And then the TIF and the CEDC are both projected to have sufficient balances for the foreseeable future. The other project, this was a little unexpected, but it was a reaction to the winter storm. The Colleyville Center sustained significant damage from the winter storm. The repairs for that are estimated at $180,000. Insurance will reimburse us $70,000, so the net cost to the CEDC for those repairs would be $110,000. This is a quick, I apologize for the truncated numbers there, but this slide contains an overview of our projected revenues and expenses. Sales tax continues to have a great year. We're projecting currently to bring in 8 to 9% over what we had budgeted for. Some of this cost has come from revenues related to the winter storm as well. Electricity costs were substantially higher. We also had substantial home repair costs that generated a bit of a sales tax windfall for us. So we tried to estimate about how much that and the kind of the rush to go out to eat and return to those retail businesses once COVID closures opened up. We tried to estimate about how much of our sales tax could be attributed to that from a conservative standpoint. And that's why you see the projection for our sales tax go down from 2.237 million in 2021 to 2.15 million in 2022. We're kind of attempting to find that baseline that we anticipate from here on forward. We also anticipate interest income around about $10,000. Again, trying to keep that as low as possible given the low income environment. As I mentioned, we tend to budget for a 80-20 grant proceeds. Whether we get those is hit or miss in a given year, but we do aggressively pursue them. So total planned revenues coming in at 2.385 million. Total ongoing operating expenditures are 1.37 million. Our capital plan for fiscal year 2022 will be at 950,000. And then of course the potential TIF loan up to 5 million. That'll be I think the last trigger we'll pull there in terms of cash flow. CEDC is not the one we're going to go to initially, but again with our projections we anticipate potentially needing up to that amount.
There's no concerns with one budget area of our overall plan loaning to another?
No, there's not. In fact, we actually have several funds that are contributing to that. CEDC is one of them. General capital projects is probably the big one.
Perfect.
But with all of those combined, we anticipate having sufficient cash.
Obviously, the council will
Yes, sir.
authorize every one of those changes and so forth. Right?
Yes, sir. And those are all detailed out in our CIP,
Right.
and we'll continue to bring that forward.
Yeah.
Personnel costs make up $623,000 here. Again, we're not increasing any full-time equivalents or part-time people there. And those make up most of our day-to-day operations. Maintenance and beautification of parks is our next highest operating cost at $311,000. We do plan on spending about $92,500 in replacing chairs and lighting at Colleyville Center and some replacements at the library. Other operating technology costs are projected to land about $135,000. Part of the overhead figure is a budgeted cost of $45,000 for communications within the Colleyville Center as well.
What is that?
I have it under administration. It's really advertising for the Colleyville Center. We'd initially moved this over to the hotel tax fund, and we're continually trying to figure out which costs we can balance between general, hotel, and CEDC. For now, this is where we've placed their advertising costs. If that, again, the concept of promotional expenses, which can only make up 10% of our revenue, we're kind of reviewing what promotional expenses means. If that does need to go into it, we may need to shuffle around some expenses again. If we do, we'll likely move the $45,000 back to the general fund and offset that with a potential part-time or from the general fund library into here. Either way, the bottom line will be the same.
How come such the big jump on the personnel and operations in your library? We went from $395 to $299 back up to $386.
Yeah, the $395 this year, it was budgeted to be fully staffed, and they've had a lot of staffing issues over at the library this year. I believe they're back to being fully staffed, and that's where we tend to budget it, is to be fully staffed.
Okay.
But yes,
So
they've
that's
had
just
some
the
issues this
projections.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed there's 49,000 for furniture replacement and 25 for ballroom lighting at the Colleyville Center. What are they replacing, all the furniture that they use in the?
Yeah, so the, Mark, you need to step in with that
The
one.
furniture replacement is for chair replacement, so they're gonna replace all the chairs that, everybody sits at for events and things. They're, I think 10 years old, so they're nearing their end of life. And the lighting is just, they continue to look at lighting upgrades, and I think, if you've been in there to some of the events, they've got kind of those blinking lights that kind of blink out lights to fix all of that.
Good.
So this is a look at our special events here. We plan to do, this year we obviously had some events that we could not pull off, either from weather or because of some COVID related issues. So we funneled some of those costs into expanding our Stars and Guitars event, as well as our Christmas event and tree lighting. You can see those increased over our budget. Next year we hope it's gonna be a bit of a normal year, and we can spread those out among different events as well. Again, these costs here are what represent about 10% of the budget. So those are the ones we count as promotional costs at this point in time.
So we are gonna try the farmer's market again?
I believe we're talking about potentially keeping that in-house, is
Yeah,
that?
we're talking about launching it again, but different, so not contracting with a third party and potentially not doing it every single week like it was, but maybe like have seasons, so a fall season and a spring season, bring in seasonal things, and do it, a few times a week. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing about that farmer's market, it seemed to me like they would go heavy on one thing and light on the other, and I think people, at least I mostly came for fresh vegetables and fruit. And there was all these other things that I had no interest in at all.
Yeah, and that was the issue with contracting, is that we didn't really have control over the vendors that they selected, and so we'll have more control. We're already reaching out and making contacts with a lot of the vendors. We're thinking about trying to launch this fall with our Harvest Festival.
Good.
So
Excellent.
Sounds good.
If I may, what's the Stars and Guitars double the expenditure? Can you explain it?
Sure, so as I mentioned, we had a lot of things that were planned with our Memorial Day event and several events prior to this. And with all those being canceled, we decided to kind of expand what we did with Stars and Guitars. In terms of specific costs, I'm actually having trouble coming with that list. Mark, do you have any?
yeah, so I think the stage ended up being a little higher than we anticipated. We paid for fireworks for Memorial Day, doubled up on Stars and Guitars because we had to cancel that event. And then we ended up renting additional chairs and tables because the demand for the kind of the private VIP seating was higher. We had a lot more, in the past it was just kind of a concert, and then we started doing fireworks, but this year we added face painting, balloon artists, character artists, different features to the event, trying to make it a little more kind of community friendly type for the kid type event.
How are you gonna avoid it this year?
So we're probably gonna scale back.
Were those things, the face painting and stuff, allocated for the Memorial Day event and they got moved, or
A
was?
few of them were,
Okay,
yeah, a few of them were, but then some we added in addition to.
just try it
Just
out?
try it out.
Okay.
So, we'll kick off planning for that here soon, even though it's, a year out. So we may have those, some were successful, some weren't, and so we'll kind of analyze that and see where we end up. And we can also use hot funds for that, so the performer, we could use hot funds for the actual artist.
Hotel.
Yeah.
Hotel.
Yeah.
Hot funds. I was wondering if those were stolen cars.
Oh, yeah, hotel funds, yeah, sorry, acronyms. Hotel funds for the artist, so we can offset some of the CDC costs.
Okay.
in that way.
How much was the fireworks?
I believe it's about 12,000 per show.
Yeah, 12
That's
or
very-
15, I
very good.
remember 15.
I heard they were great.
Yeah.
We set a precedence. I think we're gonna have to really see where we can find the extra.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to cut back on fireworks,
Yeah.
We've gone
Fireworks.
Fireworks are
double,
really
it's
good.
gonna be tough.
Yeah, it
The whole thing was well planned.
They were great.
Plus the labor having to pull those fences down, put all that jazz up.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, I think 35 is not gonna do it for Stars and Guitars.
Yeah, they had 60, but we were at
60.
119 this year,
Yeah,
so
60.
I mean, there'll have to be some other money from somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
and it'll likely be a hotel fund.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, with this year, we hadn't had a big event in over a year.
yeah, right.
And so
yeah,
we kind of
we'll
said, hey,
launch into that,
We're gonna
yeah.
make this a big spectacular event.
that was good.
We may have to modify and so we don't have to take the fences down or something. I don't know. Hard to tell.
Yeah, well,
Kind of nice though. that
it was
they were
nice
down.
having it open. I think we're gonna look at potentially sleeving them, so it's easier to do going forward.
Doing what?
Sleeving the fences, so it's
Oh.
easier to pull out.
So they can just pull them
Yeah,
out?
just pull out.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like that cell we were talking about.
I know.
Which fences are we?
These two
Baseball
baseball fields right
fences.
here, we took a portion of them down, so that people could kind of walk in between.
So people had a chance to move around.
Yeah, that was great.
So this is our last slide. It just shows our planned capital spending for the next 5 years, headed through 2026. As I mentioned earlier, the $180,000 in this year's projection refers to Colleyville Center repairs, which were due to the winter storm we experienced. We do plan on spending dollars for the sidewalk improvements as well. The restroom facility, renovations were kind of a holdover, that $243,000. That was authorized in FY '20, couldn't complete in FY '20, so those were kind of a holdover as budgeted in that year. Beyond that, the only item of note this year is that we did have some savings in the softball shade structure in City Park. We were able to rely on a bit for that. Next year, we'll continue to pursue a grant match for sidewalks as well as plan for a parks restroom upgrade. Again, those have been well received and much appreciated. Our plan to renovate the senior center does involve several funds, but we've allocated about $500,000 to come from the CEDC here. We then have two beautification projects, landscaping at our fire stations and the addition of a flagpole at McPherson Park. So that's some,
Yeah, one thing, I didn't know what Woodbriar Park was. Anybody know where Woodbriar Park is besides Mark?
Isn't it over in, like by Sandbar and stuff, or is it somewhere,
Uh-huh.
is it in by Sandbar?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's
In Woodbriar.
way down south.
That's what I was gonna say.
I didn't know where Woodbriar was either. Anyway, it's right behind Foreman's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sand volleyball pits, is that the pickleball conversion or no?
No. Oh, I don't know.
no, it would be separate, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
It would be separate, yes, sir.
Separate.
It's not the pickleball,
No.
There's sand volleyball.
Yeah.
Right.
courts, yeah.
but I
Is that
thought,
is that to add new ones?
Yeah, I thought-
I believe that is, I think Lisa is gonna add a new sand volleyball pit.
That's what it looks like,
Yeah.
it'd be brand new. I think
Because
it's
that-
brand new.
Yeah, because the relocation and the pickleball was previous
Like last year.
last year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And pickleball should be open hopefully by September.
And those, the
You see,
pickleball
the
courts.
city started a volleyball team, so they're gearing up. for-
Yeah, we went big
This training part, yeah.
The home
pickleball
side's
courts
gonna
are
be
out
a
of
little
the
higher than the
Are they in the parks budget? I can't remember.
One question on the senior center, is that
But I don't think they were this
65,000
budget.
No.
What
for some of the architecture work?
No, that
Yes,
was
that's gonna be for the planning and kind of
The
development.
design.
work. Yeah, design,
Yeah, Parkland.
what we're gonna do.
Parkland dedication, so they were
And some of
different
that may
budget,
actually bleed over into
the
next
pickleball
year.
court.
Okay.
This is actually my final slide, so I'd like to turn it back over to the board for any further questions or comments.
This doesn't show the loan.
No, sir, I'm sorry, the loan, perhaps I should have put it there, I actually put it up here under an administrative cost.
Yeah.
But I could move it down there for our next presentation
okay.
if that would clarify things.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see this in three
Yeah, I'll
pieces.
try
In
and,
fact,
Yeah.
I went to the full last page. It was easier to follow through, I'm sure, for you all too. Are there any questions? Scotty, you had a question early on
Yeah, I
about.
just had one question. The TIF loaned the CDC about $5 million, and now the CD's gonna loan back $5 million. Why did the TIF loan that in the first place if the CD had the money to pay the?
So it wasn't a loan, it was actually a reimbursement. The CEDC had issued bonds and those bonds paid for projects
So they
that
had to go
TIF
back in?
probably should have paid for.
Okay.
Yes.
We had the money, we had the
We
money.
found the ways to.
Yeah, it's
It's-
basically that maneuver moved money out of the TIF into CDC.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, does, any other questions?
Not that we have enough.
Okay. Appreciate everybody's coming, and if no other,
We'll meet again in
no other business, what'd you say?
We'll meet again in 2 weeks.
We'll meet on the 27th? 24th. On the 24th,
To actually
2
vote,
weeks.
to vote on the budget.
yes, right, and we'll be out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the
any other
24th?
questions?
Yes, sir.
And what time was it gonna be?
Uh,
That's for 4:30. Just tell me.
Yeah, it's
4:30.
Was it 4:30, okay, everybody?
Can you send a calendar invite?
Yeah.
That would be awesome, thank you.
Those are awesome.
Okay,
It's the only way to stay sane.
I just erased mine so I don't have to wait for that calendar.
Yes.
if there's no other business or questions, I'll adjourn. do that.
Thank you.
Well done, George.
450